Welcome to Booze on the Rocks. My name is David Edwards and it's great to have you here today. We're going to make a Cosmopolitan Delight. And let's be honest, this has absolutely nothing to do with the Cosmopolitan cocktail that you know and love. In fact, this came out a lot of years before that. It can first be found in print in the recipes for American and other ice drinks from 1902 by Charles Paul. Now, this cocktail is more of a variation of a New York sour, and it is a brandy/cognac version of that cocktail with some adjustments. Now you can find it in this book on page 22, which is recipe number 50, if you're actually looking for it. And I'm doing a modern version of it, so I'm not going to use the powdered sugar or anything like that. In fact, when we're talking about the ingredients, we're going to start with a little bit of lemon juice. Fresh lemon juice when possible. I'm also going to use a little bit of simple syrup. Now this is a 1-to-1 simple syrup, being 1 part water, 1 part sugar. Heat it up till it goes clear. Perfect. We're going to use a little bit of Orgeat. Now this is an almond syrup with orange highlights, and if you want the recipe for this, just go check out my website at boozeontherocks.com. But we need a little bit of cognac or brandy, whichever you can get your hands on and whichever you like better. You need a little bit of a dry Curaçao. I don't have any Pierre Ferrand, which is my preference for a dry Curaçao. However, the closest analog, is some Grand Marnier, although you could use Cointreau, but that's a little sweeter. And of course, you need a little bit of your favorite red wine. Now I'm using a little bit of Open, which is from British Columbia, Canada. And this is a shaken cocktail. So grab your shaking glass and of course a knife, because what we need to do is measure, squeeze, and strain, and not necessarily in those orders, 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice, which is 22 mils. Your second ingredient is going to be your 1-to-1 simple syrup. Now we do not use a lot. We're only going to need 1/4 of an ounce or 7.5 mils. Your third ingredient is going to be your Orgeat. Now, if you cannot either get Orgeat or don't want to make some, you could use an almond syrup. That'll work. You're just not going to have those same orange highlights that you would get in this. Now, you're going to use the same amount of 1/4 of an ounce or 7.5 mils. Your fourth ingredient is now going to be your orange Curaçao or your orange liqueur. And as I said, I'm using a little bit of Grand Marnier. You don't need a lot of this. You're going to use 1/2 ounce or 15 mils. Your next ingredient is your cognac. Now I'm using a little bit of Courvoisier. We're not going to use a whole lot of this. We're going to use a total of 1.5 ounces or 45 mils. All right, so your next step now is to shake this with some ice. So grab a little bit of ice. In fact, I am going to grab a big cube of ice and I'm going to crack it first. And I'm going to hit my finger in the process. Ow. Okay, so you don't have to crack your ice if you don't want to. And I bent my spoon. Anyways, whatever. I'll throw a bit more ice in there. So use a little bit of cracked ice if you can. If not, that's fine. And you're going to shake this for a good 10 seconds. All right, so what you're gonna do now is you're gonna pop this off with the strength of 1,000 lemons. And what we're going to do now is grab your favorite rocks glass, and we're going to just fill it with a whole bunch of fresh ice, some of which is cracked and it's not, and that doesn't matter for this cocktail. What you are going to do next is you're going to grab your strainer, and you're just gonna pour it on top. All right, so this recipe now calls for a splash of red wine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pour 3/4 of an ounce on here. And what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the long portion of my jigger. This will just give me a little bit of control, or better control. And we'll just slowly pour it on the ice around the top. And here you have a Cosmopolitan Delight. When you look at this, it looks like a New York sour without the egg white. Absolutely gorgeous. A beautiful red layer and that beautiful amber layer of the cognac. That is good. You immediately get the red wine. immediately. But the brandy underneath comes through. It's nice. It's well balanced. You get those orange flavors between the Grand Marnier and the Orgeat, and you just get that underlying balancing of the lemon juice. If you like cocktails like this, take a look after the recipe card right over here.